Hello and welcome back to Adbits. A quick one before we start. This episode is supported by 2.0 Film, a service production company covering Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, Northern Italy, and Austria. If you've got a script that needs service support abroad, just give me a call. Feel free to shout anytime. So, right, today's guest is a really interesting one. I'm joined by Ryan McCoy, creative director at Halon Entertainment in LA. Ryan spent years in proper high-end pipeline, sort of previs and post-vis on major studio films. But at the same time, he's also been building, we've just been discussing that, in fact, this sci-fi AI generated content world under the Instagram label of Brain Rat, which is absolutely blown up. So today I want to talk about the real comparison between traditional filmmaking and AI generative filmmaking. What's actually different, what's the same, and where is this all heading? Ryan, welcome to Adbits. So first question. First off, where are you right now and what's work looking like this week?
I'm in Idaho right now, and it's lovely, you know, surrounded by animals, farmland, hills. It's much more peaceful, less stressful than the LA grind where I came from. And luckily, I've just been able to keep my full-time job and work remotely. So I'm pretty happy. And yeah, I mean, my next week, hopefully, I'll be posting another reel on Instagram next week, maybe by the end of next week. And at Halon at work, we're working on previs for a big movie. We're doing some I would guess I'd say it was previs layout for some in-game cinematics, as well as pre-rendered trailers for some video games.
Amazing. And so for anyone listening who doesn't know Halon, what do you guys actually do and what's your role inside that?
Yeah, I mean, so we've been around for 21, 22 years, something like that now, doing pre-visual, post-visual, tech viz, all the vises that you normally have for film, commercials, anything, amusement park rides, TV shows. We just have spent a lot of time with concept and story and trying to facilitate the director and everyone else in the production to really craft what the vision is for those complex action sequences or complex camera moves, or just things where all the different production departments really have to come together on a specific vision and coordinate how they're going to achieve that vision.
Amazing. And what's the biggest misconception people have about previs and postvis?
Yeah. Probably producers. I mean, a lot of them get it, but I think that there's still, especially for people who aren't used to dealing with it, EPs probably. It's one of those line items that's really easy to look at and say, oh, we have to save money and we're going to cut this. And I think that for some productions that might be applicable, but honestly, it's one of those unseen things. It's like, okay, if you have a complex action sequence and you're not doing previs, you're probably going to end up spending more money on redoing a bunch of post and redoing your VFX shots, reshooting portions, trying to make sure that it works afterwards, rather than spending your money on the planning portion up front to make sure that things go smoothly at the end. So it's one of those things that is a hidden, it can actually be a hidden benefit that, I mean, that's been the idea of it from the beginning, but it's still, especially now when a lot of studios are trying to tighten their belt and do everything for less, it's become an area where people think, oh, we'll save money by doing that. And in fact, they don't.
I think it's like with everything in life, you think you don't need it. But the planning stage is the key, because the deliverance it's obviously not secondary, but yeah, once you know what you've got going on, it completely transforms everything, especially obviously with film, because you've only got a certain amount of time. That's really interesting. Okay, so and now we're going to talk about the shift into AI.
Right.
When did you first start properly experimenting with AI tools?
Oh, I don't know. When ChatGPT Midjourney first came out, I would say, I've been interested in AI forever, like just as a sci-fi enthusiast, as a hobby, as someone who's just read up about it for decades. It's been something that's really fascinated me. So when it actually became something that wasn't just a myth and a hypothetical, and it became a real tool, I just dug in. I just jumped in with both feet and loved it.
I totally understand that. And was there a moment where you thought, hang on, this isn't a gimmick, this is a proper shift? I mean, obviously, you've just mentioned that you've always been enamored by it. You've always understood where it's going. But as you mentioned, was it just ChatGPT, and was it Midjourney, or because it has felt
yeah, I mean,
it's 12 months and it's only been really what feels like 12 months. I remember when we spoke, and it was pretty early on, and it wasn't that long ago, was it?
Oh, it's going at a rapid pace, and I think that's it's tricky to really calibrate yourself with the timelines of when different elements of AI are going to be applicable for whatever and how it's going to disrupt the industry, and when it's specifically when. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are still thinking, is it really going to disrupt the industry? And I feel like those people, need to step out of their bubble and actually look at things objectively, because the answer is yes, it will disrupt every bubble that exists that we're dealing with in our lives. But it's just about when and how. And I think that's the biggest trick, because there are people like me who are super hyper enthusiastic about it, because I'm just thrilled by the concept of the technology, and I've read all the books, and I've thought about all the different trajectories and courses of mankind and all of this stuff. But at the same time, I think that it comes down to the reality of when is it actually applicable, when is it actually usable. And it's easy to think, oh, it's just around the next, it's just a week away.
Yeah.
And put all your cards into it, and really, and just be like, okay, it's ready for everything. We're just diving in right now. And then I think there's the opposite extreme because I think a lot of companies did that. A lot of companies were early adopters of AI, and they put all this research and development funding into it, trying to make it the next big thing. And then when it didn't succeed, they were like, "Oh, fuck AI! It's not usable. We're gonna move on without it. That's just a gimmick. It'll go away. Just let the bubble burst, and it'll be gone." And then there's the sort of opposite extreme of the people that are actively against it and assume that it will never happen. And I think that the reality is definitely somewhere in between. And I think that you can assume that it can do too much and overestimate what it's capable of and find yourself burned, or you can underestimate it, and you will also find yourself burned in those situations. So it's really about like writing what the honest truth of what its capabilities are in your present moment, which is honestly incredibly difficult to do, because every week the conversation changes about what is actually capable and what is viable, for what its uses are.
No, it feels on a daily basis. I'm blown away at what new things can be done. And in a sentence, I mean, we've been speaking about, in a sentence, what is AI genuinely good at right now, and what is it still terrible at?
Oh, I mean, it's great it is a very creative tool. It is hyper creative. It is more creative than most people are creative, in the sense that you can give it something and it'll give you a bazillion permutations of it in every way. It doesn't have a taste of its own. It doesn't have a mind of its own. So it's just going to run around, and it still needs that person to steer it and guide it towards where it needs to go. But you can use it as a launch board to come up with all sorts of great ideas that you wouldn't have thought of before, before starting to prompt, before experimenting with it and getting feedback. So I see it as a collaborator in the work that I do.
Yes.
I see it as a collaborator and a tool, but it is definitely a collaborator, because it comes up with stuff, and it might be weird, random, off the wall shit, and you're like, oh wait, I can see where that could go. I would not have thought of that, but that's kind of cool. And then you push it further in that direction, and you end up on these different tangents than you would have on your own. I think that is really its biggest strength, is enabling people to do things that otherwise they wouldn't have thought of, or otherwise would have taken them months or years to do on their own with traditional devices. What it's bad at is, I think, it can't do everything. And I think if you assume that it can do everything, that's where the problems lie, because you will often think, oh, well, if it can do this really well, it should be able to do this really well. And you can't always tell when it will or will not be able to do a specific thing that you're asking it to do. And that's really, it's really frustrating. For instance, if you want to have a wide shot of a character talking, good luck. It's going to look like garbage, most likely. Their lip sync is going to be all weird and mush. Their fingers are going to flutter around, and nothing's going to quite be right. Close up, you're great. You're pretty much golden. You want to have coverage of multiple camera angles of the same action, same scene. Good luck. You can try to do it, but it's not going to be the exact same performance in each camera angle. It's not going to be the same thing. You're going to really be struggling with it and figuring it out. So doing action sequences where you need continuity of action, of motion, of what's going on, it can be really challenging. Getting the subtle performances that you want from the actors. I'm a huge proponent of using real actors, shooting them, using them as the basis for the AI and what you're doing, and recording, getting their actual voices, because you can often get a believable performance. Like right now, you could get a believable performance. It just may not be the performance you want. And so now the question is, can it fool me? Yes. Can it fool me with the intent that I want out of their acting performance? Maybe not. Usually not. And sometimes it'll get close enough that you're like, all right, we can publish that. But it is a far cry from giving a good performance that you would expect from a real human actor.
It's so interesting, I find, when I see generative AI films, content being made, and it feels like, I don't know, when I look in the past of filmmaking and I see CGI and how everything became CGI to the point of marvelization of the world, in a way I describe it as. Whereas really what I want is physicality and model making. I look at model making sometime in the old films and I think to myself, that you need reality with unreality in order to mesh it together somehow to get the most believable or realistic sort of environments. That's what it feels like to me. I don't know, it doesn't matter where AI goes. I feel that you're always going to want that. And so you mentioned, actual human performances. I think that's going to be, maybe that's something that will stay fundamental to everything. It may not, and maybe I'm just being
I don't think it will, but what I do think is that there will always be there will always be a niche that wants to see the effort behind something. I think the same thing, that even with CG, there's CG films now, and there's also films that come out that are still using stop motion claymation.
Yes.
There's still 2D animated films still exist. They still come out because there's an audience that really wants to see that. They love knowing that someone drew every frame of something. Is like very cool. And being able to spot human effort. And that was the reason nobody liked CG, because they couldn't grasp what it took to make the thing. It just looked like magic. It was like this kind of fudgy magic that wasn't very good. Now people are starting to accept it a little bit more as like, oh, that's an art form now.
Yes. I mean, I just wonder sometimes where the brain becomes overwhelmed by CGI when it's in its full glory sometimes. And I just wonder whether there's something about physicality, like model making specifically, for example, when you're mixing it up, that makes it just richer, the environment. I don't know how to describe it, anyway, it's just a thought that always pops into my head. And I don't know whether that's because of my background or what it is, but I've always felt that. But anyway, I would like to move on. I'm just very conscious of your time.
Sure.
talking about what is brain racked and how do you describe it? I mean, that's how we met, obviously, because I saw, just for people who don't know, we met because I've been following, I was very interested in generative AI, who was doing what. And I came across this thing called Brain Racked on Instagram, and it by far was one of the most interesting. I recommend anyone to see it and to check it out. By far, one of the most interesting generative AI, what we call Instagram accounts out there by far. So I got into contact with Ryan through that. But for Ryan, what is Brain Racked and how do you describe it?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think that for me, it was just a way to, well, explore AI on my own, but also to sort of find my voice creatively. I mean, initially, I wasn't necessarily trying to find my voice. I was trying to kind of try to start a community online with AI art, just to see what it could do, put myself out there and start creating. But as it grew, I started realizing that I was able to craft it and create things that ordinarily would have taken me months or years to create using traditional means, using, you know, all of the 3D tools, or if I was painting in Photoshop, whatever it was like that. So I pushed it in a direction of, okay, let me go further in this direction. Let me intentionally try to create something that would be otherwise impossible for me to make. Like, how can I use this new tool to create something that I couldn't make, and that probably no one could easily make in reality, because the budget, no one would give you the time or the money to do it otherwise, and it would be unfeasible in any other means. That's what was really interesting to me. It's like, how can we use this new tool in new and creative ways that warrant this new tool? Obviously, you can use it for much more than that. But I think that that's kind of how it started. And then as I started to build my own creative voice, I was inspired by what I was making. And so I started steering it more into a direction and building this whole world and building this mythos and lore and characters and vehicles and relationships between robots and humans, and, you know, sort of old Victorian era thing. And actually a lot of it was because I think that there's kind of like there's been in art in general for the or not like practical art for the past, God, I don't know, 50 years, maybe more. There's been like a minimalist vibe through everything that comes out, where the epitome of most art is, how do you do it with the fewest strokes? How do you do it with the fewest lines, fewest lights, fewest whatever? Very simple, and it's beautiful. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But part of me is like, oh man, you take a tour through the Vatican someday. That is not minimal. And it's fucking beautiful.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's not minimal at all, and very unusual, very odd.
Yes, yeah, and it's maximalist.
Overwhelming.
Right? It's the other way. It's the other side of the spectrum. And what I find really amazing about that is you would have an artisan who works their whole life, who can do one sort of one piece of frise that goes around a column, and they teach their children how to continue that craft, and they're continuing to work down the column, and then their grandchildren continue the craft. And this sort of artistry, it takes generations to create something like the Vatican, right? And this goes, there's a lot of these pieces all around the world from thousands of years ago, where people just did this, and the reason it was so valuable was because of the detail and the intricacy that went into every piece. And so I thought, okay, great. What would that look like in a futuristic context? Because to me, that is value. In some ways, it's like the opposite of what, it's the same thing that AI gets blamed for, is that there is no human input. But what's really interesting to me is, okay, what does it look like if there was infinite human artistry crafted into every piece? Well, now we can simulate that in a way that wouldn't be achievable with traditional artists anymore, without a fucking ridiculous amount of cash. And no one would front that anymore.
Yeah, and I just think that's why it stands out, and it feels, your vision is very singular, I would say. And again, I would tell everyone to have a look at it to see what it's out there, because it's amazing. And I think that's a great way of describing. It's really interesting how you're describing it. I was also really blown away when I went to the Vatican, and I thought I'm not in any way a religious person, and I found it a bit overwhelming, if I'm honest. But at the same time, you just can't ignore it. It's pretty amazing.
Right. Yeah.
So okay, so next, and moving on from that, so what was the first post that made you realize it was working?
Oh man, I don't even know. It really was it was very gradual. I don't think trying to think. I guess, you know what, the first post that I had that went more viral was the baby carriage post. Yes. Where I had this it was like this glass egg and moving by itself down the road, and inside there's a baby, and you kind of go in and you see this close-up of its face, this little baby, and there's like translucent gears and ornamentation under the skin that's moving and controlling it. And I think that it really got under people's skin, and it did it in some that got positive reactions, and some was like, oh my God, this is sacrilegious. We can't deal with this. This is, and I think I kind of love that, because to me, that's part of what art does, is it pokes at things and it makes you feel stuff. But I think that what was beautiful about it to me was that, that proved to me that this is viable as something that I could continue to craft and continue to build into, build out. Because before then, yeah, there were some posts that got more traction, but I think that was the first one that got over 1 million. I think it got like 4 million views or something like that. And that was, I don't know, maybe a year ago that I had posted that. And since then I kept building on it and going deeper and deeper into the story and into the world. But
I think it's so amazing that it's so casual. You rightly put, I was just about to say, so you want to tell people how many that got, because obviously I've seen it and I know, but it is amazing the amount of interest these relatively short posts are garnering. I mean, obviously the social platforms have a huge audience, but still 4 million is a huge amount. And it leads on, it's a perfect segue into the next question, which is, you've got 350,000 followers now. Why do you think it's resonated? What's the hook? And I'm guessing you've already sort of implied that with your previous, what you were talking about, the most viral sort of, how, when you thought it was working with that viral.
Well, I think it shows people, I mean, I think that it could show people something that they haven't really seen before.
Yeah.
I think that I've been able to carve out sort of a niche that shows people a world, a glimpse of a future that doesn't look like Blade Runner. It doesn't look like the other futuristic visions that you've seen that are in your normal consciousness, And so it's like, oh, that's fucking cool.
Yeah.
Show me more of it. Tell me more about what that is. And I take a lot of time with my stuff. Like, I think that there are a lot of AI accounts that just pump out work after work after work, because they could just produce things so quickly. But for me, like, I'll take hours or days with each design, because I really want each piece to feel like it. I'm not talking about each, like for a full piece. I'm just talking about like one frame, like one shot can take me days, because I want every element of it to feel inspiring to me. I don't want to just pump out another thing that fills a slot, or that gets clicks or gets likes. And I think that I did that a little bit more before, and it really like burned me out, because I would spend so much time on everything. But now that I'm diving more into just creating an actual, like, really crafting a story behind what I'm doing, I think that it's taking me time to do. And I think that you see the effort behind the work that's being produced when you see AI stuff. And there are a lot of posts that will go viral, where it was just a clever idea, or it was they were on the front end of a trend that's coming out, and people are sharing it because whatever, it's silly or it's funny, or it's like, oh man, I haven't seen whatever that is before. Click like, and then you know, and then you have 1 million followers. But I don't think that those followers necessarily are going to be looking to hire you to do production work. I think that most of the time they're just doing it because it's funny, or because it's cute, or because the whatever interest thing about that account is. But I think that the filmmakers that are using it, or the artisans that are really using it. I mean, the whole thing is artists are the only ones able to create anything good with AI when you come down to it.
It's really interesting on that point, just to break in, because
yeah,
I spoke to yourself, and there was a couple of other people I spoke to. One of them's Charming Computer, who I know you know, and he's an artist, you know, and your background is an artist background as well, you know, with what you do. And and those are the few accounts that I've followed and stuck out to me because of that. So, you know, people talk about, you know, I've met lots of AI people who are not with that background, who are also doing very, very well, very good work. But it's interesting who's sticking out. Just to add to what you were just saying, obviously.
Yeah, you can, and you don't have to be an artist. However, it will give you a tremendous edge. And if you're not an artist, it's possible that you had a lot of affinity toward that ability that was latent. You know what I mean? Like, I think that what it comes down to is, I think there's this misconception that anyone can just pick up AI and make something amazing. And there are a lot of people who look at my work and just assume, oh, you just did one prompt and then it was done. Yeah. What are we giving him credit for? He didn't do anything. But when you look at the billions of AI accounts that are popping up, you will see that some have sort of risen to the top, and you notice that it's often because they have that background, or they spend the time to really craft that. And it's usually it's filmmakers, photographers, artists, sculptors, painters. You know, it's the people who understand, who've spent their life curating their own taste to the point where they can direct the AI to give them something that they know is going to resonate, and that they know is going to be a statement. You know, it's like art for so long has been lauded for craft. I mean, if you can draw a portrait of a person that looks photoreal, you will be applauded for your ability, and you should be, rightfully so. That's a technical skill that you're able to do and you're able to accomplish. Now AI has made that simple. Anyone can make something that's photoreal now. So what is it that it's saying now? Now it's about what you're saying. What is the content? What is the message? What is the underlying intent of the art that you're creating? And if you don't have a message anymore, now it's a problem, because anyone can create just an image of a photoreal person. It's kind of like photography, where, you know, when it first came out, it's like, oh, photographers aren't artists. They're not painting anything. They're not doing anything. They're just clicking. They're just hitting a button and capturing something. So how can we call them artists? Well, I think we can all lay that one to rest at this point.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it'll be the same thing with AI as it continues to grow.
I think it's you've managed to verbalize it so well. It's such a succinct way of looking at it. And it's interesting at the moment with AI, because it seems to be just getting away from us. We have no control over it. It's just every day there's something new. It's quite overwhelming to a lot of people. But at the same time, there's a control element, which is really, if you don't know what you're doing, or if you've got no idea about visualization, if you've got no background in that, you can create pretty visuals, but that's kind of it. I mean, my next question was, is it more about visuals or more about world building and story? And
it can be anything. You know, I really think it can be anything. I think that It's just, do you make something that genuinely resonates with people?
Yeah.
Or are you making something that disappears into the into the ether, and people just keep swiping like they don't care?
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, if you're making a making a film, making a story, and you're making a good story, people are going to follow along no matter what medium you're using. If you make a shit story, people are going to start losing interest. It could be the most beautiful thing in the world, and maybe some people will follow along just if it's the most beautiful thing in the world. But ultimately, if they're not invested in the world and the characters and what's going on, they're going to lose interest. Like, I mean, you could see TV shows that have massive budgets, and if they're not entertaining, then no one's gonna, people are gonna stop. I was just
watching one today, and I'm so fascinated that it was on Prime. I'm not going to say which one it was.
Yeah,
big show for them though. And I literally was watching it going, that's just so bad. And then you look up the budget, and it was a $55 million budget, and you're like, I don't even know where I was looking at it, and obviously with the production background, you're the same. You're like, I didn't even know how you could have spent that. I was like looking at the locations because it was all around the world. Well, not all around the world, but the locations just didn't look. Everything looked the same. I was shocked, and it's a $55 million budget film. And you're just like, I couldn't get my head up. I can't get my head up. And the idea was, the premise was fine,
right?
But you're just like, what the fuck are you guys doing?
I mean, that's where it comes down. It comes down to just, what do you have to say? What skills do you have to say it with? Because it still takes skills to do this, right? It's not like it just will create whatever you want. It creates along the lines of where you're heading, where you're directing it to do. Yeah. So if you don't have a crystal clear vision, or you can't use it and springboard off of it to create something that resonates with other people, it's just going to it's kind of like, okay, like Steven Spielberg creates movies. We all kind of know what we're going to get when we get a Steven Spielberg movie. We know that it's going to have these great sweeping camera moves, that it's going to pull at our heartstrings, that we're going to come out and love it. Most people would say Steven Spielberg is an artist. He typically doesn't ever write the scripts. He's not the cinematographer. Like, every once in a while, he'll grab the camera and do the camera control, but he's not the actors. He is not the production designer, the costume designer, the makeup, right? But he prompts them all to do that. And the end result is something that is very artistic and in high esteem, what he's able to accomplish. And I think that for me, what AI is pulling someone off the street and saying, okay, you're the director. What do you got? What are you gonna add to this? And are you going to be able to make it something great? Or is it just gonna languish and disappear into nothing? And I think that the more that you've honed your own talent, and by using it, you can hone your talent as well. I think the same way that you can by grabbing a camera and going out and photographing, you can spin for hours, prompting, redoing things, finding different ways to get it. Because at the end of the day, you're just whittling away at a vision and at a concept and at and whatever it is that your self-expression comes out as. So yeah, I think that having that background in filmmaking, having a background in all of those things, allows you to craft and curate what you want as the end product.
It's so funny you mentioned Steven Spielberg. I literally was going to bring him up as you said it, because I keep hearing from him recently. I keep listening to him talking. I recently saw his there's a documentary that I highly recommend on Jaws, because it's 50 years or something, and I think it's on Netflix or Prime. I think it's on Netflix. Anyway, it's really, really interesting. It talks about how he was traumatized through the shoot of Jaws, which no one thought was going to work. The production went way over. They were shooting out at sea. I'm sure you know all this stuff. But anyway, he talks about, the fear he has, as well as the joy of going into every film. He's always afraid because he can't control everything, and you never know what's going to happen. And maybe with the control or that AI gives you, obviously with the actors as well. I definitely feel that there'll be the human actors are needed. I'm not talking about visual, virtually creating or AI creating, whatever you want to call it, actors themselves. But that will give you more control over the end product, which hopefully will be better, rather than shooting in a location like I saw the film today. And, you know, they're shooting there for certain times, you're shooting abroad for certain reasons, or especially with movie making, it's to do with tax credits and things like that. That's a whole different world that plays into the filmmaking. So anyway, it's very interesting. And yeah, I think what you're saying is it's really, really insightful.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
moving on,
there's no limit anymore to the budget, like the location budget, let's say. Like, you know, if you were bidding something, if you were bidding a site like a commercial, let's say, and it involved going to outer space and then going to the bottom of the sea, and you know, 24 different locations with aliens and robots and mutants, it wouldn't be much more different than the budget of a situational comedy at a supermarket, you know, or in a bedroom. And whereas to do it with a normal production, it's vastly, massively different budgets, to the point where one of them would be completely out of the scope and the other one is something achievable. And so, yeah, it really comes down to the execution of the craft, rather than constrained by what is possible. Now, I'm not saying everything is possible with AI, because there are things that are easier and harder for AI to achieve as well. They're just not what we're used to us, you know, associating with higher or lower budgets in a traditional sense.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Okay, so next we're going to talk about process, and well, I'd like to talk about process and quality. So I want to ask you to give me an honest comparison. If you're doing a Halon job on a major film versus building a brain-packed piece, how different is the workflow? You know, like, how long does each take? Where do you spend the time? And sort of what's the hardest parts? I mean, I think you've obviously mentioned it. Obviously, they're very different things. So I don't know if that's a very fair question.
Well, so at Halon, if we're doing a, let's say we're doing an animation for a game cinematic or a commercial or something, we would take a slightly more traditional path of script, storyboard. We would do layout or animation. I mean, the good thing with Halon, we're not super typical in that we use Unreal in our pipeline. Like, ever since UE4 came out, we adopted it heavily, and all of our supervisors and directors come from a previs background. So they're good at camera work, at understanding shots, layout, composition, and those sorts of things. So usually that will be the strength that we lean on. We'll come up with a really good layout. We'll be able to do it all in Unreal, get the motion capture, incorporate the motion capture back, and then we are iterating from there, iterating the lighting, iterating the modeling, iterating the whatever, dynamics, and everything can kind of happen within the same Unreal space, so that you're whittling away at something like a sculpture, rather than having everything be one department completely finishes, then the next department completely starts. There's always a little bit of overlap in such a way because of that. But for the most part, it's a pretty standard, like, animation workflow. The final. With AI, it's a bit different, because, like, yes, you still need to do your basic pre-production. You still need to write a script. You still need to helps if you do storyboards, or at the very least a shot list of what you want to do. And then in my mind, I get into editorial as soon as I possibly can, because the thing that's really interesting about AI is that you could jump around at any point in time. So you're in some ways, it's like you're making the whole movie in post, where if you want to change something, you want to reshoot in a different location, you want to do whatever, you can just do it. You want to add insert a new shot, great. You don't have to reshoot anything, just create a shot. Oh, you want to insert of the gun being pulled out of the holster, or you want to do something else. And so a lot of it comes down to watching your edit and just building out your timeline as you go and changing it. You don't need that shot anymore. Okay, we need a new shot of something else. All right, how do we make that? So often what you're doing is different than how you would normally be processing it. That being said, I think that one of the more one of the best approaches now is to kind of design some of your main key pieces, the main characters, the location, the main objects, and then have those as image assets that you can use, and then use something like Nano Banana Pro, and just go through and say, okay, I need a close-up of this, a thing of that, a two-shot of these two characters in this environment, and you start to whittle away at the shots that you need. You have all of those, then you can use those as your storyboard. You can use them as just putting out an edit, kind of like a boardomatic, of all the stills, of all the shots that you want in that resolution. And then you go through and you start bringing them all into motion. You go image to video using your different tools. That doesn't have to be the way to do it, but that's a good way to kind of start off. You could jump straight into video and then extend the video, or change the video, or alter it, or run with it in different ways. But usually starting with creating the images first is the best way to go, because it allows you the most control of the look of what what you're getting out of the end product. Yeah.
Okay, that was a brilliant explanation. What skills from, and again, we've probably spoken about this, but just what skills from traditional filmmaking transfer over and give you an advantage in AI? I mean,
we like all of them.
Everything.
All of them. It can't really make a film for you at all at this point today. It can't. It is not great at deciding when to cut, how to make multiple shots that work properly within a sequence, how to convey the emotion that you want. It's not good at all of those things. And honestly, I think some of the skill set that is lacking the most from the AI filmmaker community, is the ability to edit. Like, most people just don't have the amount of experience that they need to be trying to pull off what they're pulling off. And so you end up with a lot of stuff where it's just like, you used 3 shots there when you could have used 1, or this didn't cut at all, or the pacing was all screwed up. I got really bored during this section. It's like really basic fundamental concepts, or just like even if it's as simple as the 180 rule. If you don't understand it, the AI is not going to help you. It's not going to fix that for you. So you have to know all the fundamentals, all the same tricks that you would use for any other thing. Same thing with composition. Yeah, it can probably create a beautiful frame, but it's not always going to create a beautiful frame that cuts nicely with the shot next to it. It's not going to create the frame that necessarily gives you the emotion or the intent that you want, or the lighting that you want. You can look at something and you're like, okay, that's kind of cool, but man, it would be a lot more, this would work a lot more if it was backlit, if we had, if there was a practical light of the thing that he's holding. All of those normal intuitions that you have as a filmmaker, as an art director, they're all tools that are still just as applicable with AI as it would be in the real world.
I'm always there's always that saying, isn't there, that be wary when you hear on set when you've shot something, oh, we'll fix that in post. I'm always it just reminded me in some way of that. If you don't get it in camera, it's not good at all.
And with AI, it's all post.
Yeah,
it's like post and more post.
Yeah.
And I think but it also is beautiful if you do know if you can open up Nuke or After Effects or whatever, because there's a lot of times where you can, I can fix this weird glitch that's happening in post. 15 minutes if I do it myself. Whereas if I try to continue to reprompt and to get it to do the thing, it's just never happening. And that's great. And that's where VFX people would really shine in this area as well. And I mean, Photoshop is huge. I use Photoshop all the time. So it's not like I'm 100% happy with all the designs or with that. Nano Banana Pro is great, but it can't always composite everything the way you want it to. It can't always It doesn't always do the things that you want it to do. The same thing with, like, sometimes if I need a different angle on a scene and you just try to prompt it with an image model, sometimes it's not always accurate. And it doesn't always give you a proper rotation of the camera as you would. So then you go to a video model and you say, okay, no, make an orbit around, let's, to give me a 180 view of this scene. And then it'll actually render every frame to get the new perspective. Like, okay, great. I'll extract that frame now that I have that perspective. But I have to tweak it. I have to update things in Photoshop. I've got to add the different elements because it just fabricated the other side of the set when I told it to do that. And that's not the set that I wanted it to be. So now I got to go into Photoshop. I have to add the set back in, composite it back in, add the blur, fix the other things, put the character's face got a little distorted and weird. I got to re-put that back on. Okay, now I can run that through. So there's so much manual work that can go into it if you give a shit to do it right. If you're just banging stuff out, then it's going to look sloppy. It's going to look crappy, and that's what kind of gives it a bad name a lot of the time, is the people that are just like throwing it out there without using it as a tool in your pipeline, your normal production pipeline.
It's funny. The next question literally was, what separates great AI work from generic AI work? And I think you've answered that perfectly within that. Next, I think for lots and lots of people with your background as well, you're the perfect person to answer this, and this is why I love this one. Well, it's like, what are the main things you do to avoid the generic AI look?
I mean, I guess the technical answer to that would be that I since I'm going for a more photoreal look, I'll try to make sure that I'm sort of prompting with tools and using image inputs and stuff that force it into a more realistic place, and then I'll usually upscale the image with a either magnific or whatever, something that makes it feel more realistic and adds details over the top, because a lot of times Midjourney will kind of can tend to make people look a little bit plasticky when it's not a close-up of them, or when you have a lot of other interesting things going on. Sometimes it starts to go kind of CG fantasy globule looking. And you can with Nano Banana Pro, you can make things look more realistic. Nano Banana's also Pro, I would say, is like I know this may be another one of your questions, but I would say that's probably the best AI tool of 2025. Is Nano Banana Pro, because it really allows you to do so much more than the previous generations and previous image editors allowed you to do, in such a way where it really does open up a lot of doors for efficiency that used to take just so much head banging. And it's more, you can mostly rely on it to do what you're expecting it to do when you prompt something. That being said, I still use Midjourney to make the initial designs 95% of the time, because Midjourney just makes the most beautiful images of all of them. I'll put it through that. I'll try to use a good, I'll almost always try to use a video model that has a native 1080p output. A lot of them still have 720, which isn't the end of the world, but if you're trying to upscale that, there's a big difference between something that is natively coming out at 1080 than 720. When you're upscaling to 4K, or when you're trying to add that extra clarity to it. Video upscalers are okay. Topaz is still probably the best one out there, but it's not always perfect, and it doesn't all there are often times where I'll use it and I'm just like, this is creating weird problems, and it's making it looking less realistic than if I just did something that's straight out of Kling or straight out of Hailuo or whatever. And so sometimes I'll end up just kind of using the base one, even if it might be slightly lesser resolution. But no, I do. I mean, I love those tools. What I would say though is that I think really what would make it stand out the most is just is just the underlying, the intent, the process, the dedication, the patience, all of those things that go into the work. And I think if you haven't curated your own taste as an artist in one way or the other, whatever field it might be, but if you've curated your taste, I think that it will be a massive boon to you in making sure that your final creation is also something that raises the bar for you.
That's half the job done, isn't it? Once you know yourself,
yes,
everything.
You know yourself what is good. Because that's the thing. As a creative director, as an artist, you're constantly critiquing things. You're critiquing other work, and you have to be able to articulate what it is that needs to change, what it is that you need to modify about the thing that you're creating.
Otherwise,
and
you just
with
get
AI, exactly. If you can't articulate what it is that you want to change, what it is to motivate, what direction you want to push something is to make it unique and to make it what your vision is, you are just going to get something that is generic, that feels sloppy.
Yeah, completely. So we're going to the final bits now. I'm conscious of time. I've loved all of this. It's been brilliant. I really have. So the final section is like from the studio side, what are people actually doing with AI right now? Not theory, but real use.
Oh, well, depends on the studio. I think that there's different, this is like, it's going to be one of those answers that doesn't answer anything. I think fine. That there's,
I think that's where it is at the moment. That's fine.
I think it is. Yeah. I feel like everyone has a different aptitude or a different tolerance level to it, and a different amount that they're encouraging. I know that there's multiple productions right now that are trying to make a feature film out of AI. There's multiple productions that are just making whole commercials, and that's all they do is just make full spots with AI. And with a hint of VFX and whatever else, to color grading and all the things that you normally do. There are big productions, though, typically shy away from it for the most part, and they're using it in smaller degree. Like I think every VFX company has some branches within the company that are testing it out in different ways. I mean, there's the easy low-hanging fruit, like, oh, we'll use it to help roto. I mean, if you look at just Photoshop as the basis, right? Like anyone using Photoshop now, who has been using it their whole life and still uses it professionally, has access to a whole bunch of AI tools, generative fill, object selection. Those things are huge, create huge efficiencies in what would ordinarily be painstaking tasks. And so I think that a lot of what we're seeing is a sort of base level of efficiency that can go up. Even just motion capture cleanup, just all of the kind of the sort of grunt work stuff. It's the same thing, facial capture, like retargeting, facial capture, cleanup. So many of those things are starting to really incorporate AI, generating backgrounds, adding, if you're doing a matte painting, being able to incorporate AI to help, being able to, I don't know. There's so many things, and a million of them I don't even know about, because it's their own proprietary thing that they're trying out and testing in their, in their own little area, relighting. I'm sure there's a bazillion compositing tricks that are relying on some AI component that people are using in different studios. Effects, like one thing that's great at is effects, certain effects. They may not scale up to a feature film, but for a TV show, for something else, for a commercial, like you can get some really complicated effects or titles or other things like that otherwise you'd have to do a huge Houdini sim. It would be a whole thing where you could do it, and usually it can come out in a pretty sophisticated manner a lot of the time. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of ways that it can be incorporated, or elements of it can be used and kit bashed into the final output of what you're doing. Whether or not you're creating the full finished piece is a whole other story. But you can create a cloud simulation. You could create a person. You could create an animal grazing grass on a green screen. You can throw that in the background. There's so many ways that you can use it as part of your pipeline.
Yeah. And what's the biggest resistance you see? Is it creative fear, legal fear, ego, or job protection? I keep hearing about legal fear a lot. Job protection seems an obvious one. I think legal fear has been interesting because it hasn't been resolved yet. My understanding is a lot of the platforms are being taken to court, and the legal cases and the outcomes of those cases will dictate what's actually happening. And when I'm saying that to people who don't understand, I'm talking about how these models have been trained, what imagery and film, what content they've been trained upon is the main issue.
Yeah, I think I think there are different legal issues that people are worried about. And some of them are simply, what would the audience backlash be to learning that we used AI? Especially for larger brands doing commercials or feature films. Sometimes you put out a promotional poster, and if someone notices that a character looked like they had something was slightly wonky about one of their fingers in the background, it's like, oh my God, they used AI for this. We have to boycott everything to do with this brand. They are trash, And so I think there's a lot of hesitancy from people to use it simply because of that there is a contingency of folks who vehemently are against and despise everything to do with AI. But I think there's different hesitance, and part of it too is that AI can't solve all the problems, and you can't use it unilaterally for everything that you want to do for a big budget production. You can't create all the shots that you want, or even if you had a sequence, a big effects sequence, you likely would have to be able to rely. You'd have to have those the basic VFX pipeline as the backbone, even if you were going to attempt it, because it's not quite there to do everything that you need to do at the caliber that you need to do it to fulfill what you need it to. So it's like, I don't think we're that far away from being able to achieve that. But I think that when you're budgeting out a show and figuring it out, you have to do what you know is going to work and what you know is going to be successful in the end. At the end of the day, you can't take that big of a risk. And some of them can, and some of them are, but I think what'll be really interesting is people who are building budgets for stuff that are like multi-year projects or year-long projects. Like, by the time that thing is done, the ability of the AI is going to be so far beyond where it is today that you're going to look around and be like, oh my God, we could have done this with so much less money.
Yeah, that's great. All right, we're in the quick fire round now. So I'm going to do 4 questions and just very simple answers. Okay.
Okay.
So some of these you've already commented on, but one AI tool you genuinely rate. What would you say? Which one is it?
Yeah, I mean, Banana Pro.
That's the one
I would say. I would say right after that. I feel like I would put Kling right after that. They've come out with a lot of great advancements.
I see it all the time. I see it being mentioned all the time. And one AI tool that's overhyped that you would say. That's quite interesting. It's quite fun.
Oh, I don't know, because it's like, if one of them is a little behind, just wait till next week and then reassess.
And then they move on. Yeah. Okay, that's probably a more sensible answer, because it's easy to, I guess, in a way, be like, oh, that one. But as you said, they just are all moving at different rates. It's like with with ChatGPT and OpenAI to Google, I've been fascinated with how that's all moving. 1 week one is ahead, and then the other one is.
Yeah, it's like leap horse, or it's like leapfrog.
Yeah, it really is.
It's just you can't really guess. You can, there's a track record. Some of them typically are always going to be towards the top. But anyone can disrupt the leader if they just come out with, hey, let me think of a different way, an interesting way we could train a different type of model. Bam, and then it's like, oh shit, we didn't see that coming. All right, and then everyone else tries to do it and copy what they did. So that's just the way it works.
Okay, so and then the next one is biggest thing AI still cannot do properly. I think one of the things that really stuck out to me when you were talking about it was the fact that doing a wide. for example.
Yeah, it struggles with that for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think that part of the issue is the smaller the pixels are on the screen, the less accurate it's going to be at resolving what is happening within that. So the larger screen space you have, the more accurate your output is going to be. So yeah, I mean, you have to really come up with more creative ways to do things whenever you're getting into articulate motions or people talking or things that are supposed to happen with smaller characters on the screen, or a larger array of casts that all have to be doing things the way you want them to be done. Becomes very difficult.
And the final thing I wanted to ask was best advice to a director or producer who wants to stay ahead without becoming a gimmick.
Do you mean without becoming a gimmick, like not just jumping into the latest trend?
Yeah, I mean, it just some. What would you? You're right at the heart of this.
I mean, I just think that I really think
come from the industry itself. It's like, what would you say to a director or producer who think about jumping in?
Just make something good. There's not a lot that's good, so just make it
good,
and you're going to be great.
Same with everything. It's like get a camera and go and make it. It's like now you can do this.
I mean, really, that's the easiest answer. Is if you use AI and you make something awesome, you're gonna be miles ahead of all the other people who are using AI who are making mediocre stuff. I do think that getting familiar with what is possible is really helpful, because you might have preconceived notions of what was possible 1 week ago, and that's not true anymore. But that's the trickiest thing is trying to predict. Like I was saying, if you do have a production that's going to last a year, 2 years, if you have a series, whatever it is, you kind of have to assume that if you're jumping in this pot, it's going to evolve quickly.
Yes.
And so it is tricky to predict. So you kind of have to think what is possible now and be comfortable with that, and comfortable with a certain amount of risk as to what is going to be possible in the near future, and kind of weave that into your plans. It's not an easy task, but I do think that there are a lot of opportunities with people who are going to be early adopters of this, because the people who are doing it successfully are getting a lot of clients, because everyone is reaching out to them to try to do their project. And everyone assumes that it's dirt cheap to do things with AI. I would say that it's not dirt cheap, but that they're, like I was saying before, you can do things that would otherwise be incredibly expensive. So I would not try to do a sitcom with AI. That would be the most expensive way you could possibly do a sitcom. But if you're doing a sci-fi action fantasy hybrid film with all sorts of ships, with a space battle and the most intense thing possible, that would be a fraction of the cost. That would be nothing compared to what it would cost to do it in any other way. So I think that when you're thinking about what you're using AI for, you should think about what warrants using AI. What is an idea or a concept that I really couldn't do? I couldn't get the funding to do any other way, because now people are going to get it, and they're not going to just give you flack for like, oh look, you used it for a thriller in a dark alley. Like, okay, or you could have just grabbed a camcorder and found an alley. So yeah.
Really good. All right. Well, listen, Ryan, thank you so much. I love that. What's so interesting about your perspective is you're coming from this really high end of traditional filmmaking, but you've also proven that AI can have taste and identity and build a world where people actually, which people actually care about. For everyone listening, go check out Brainracked on Instagram. Have you got a TikTok account as well?
Yeah, I have four followers on my TikTok account.
Okay.
But yeah, feel free to follow me. I'd love to grow it out. So
I love all that. And if you enjoyed the episode, subscribe, share it, and send it to someone in production, creative, or post will appreciate it. And a quick reminder before you go, the episode was supported by 2.0 Film, where I work. I'm the EP there, servicing productions across Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, Northern Italy, and Austria. If you've got a job coming up that needs support abroad, or you want fast budgets and location input, drop me a message. All right, thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.